Hello world, Great Giza Pyramid. In this video, I'm going to focus more on the cover-ups and going through explanations of things. If this confuses you, I urge you to watch some of the other videos which explain things. First, let's start with the Queen's Chamber, what they call the Queen's Chamber. The fact that it used to have a soft floor. Right there, you can see it. I'm not making this up. In fact, the soft floor was the reason given for why the tomb robbers, dug that dig out right there. There's some secret ninja code that says if there's a soft floor, there's treasures hidden behind it. So that's one. Number two, really obvious, is the grand step. See right here, this is the top of the grand step before you go into the antechamber, which leads to the king's chamber. You also notice they've been nice enough to stain the walls. By staining the walls, you can't really see this up here. You still see it if you're looking for it, but you're not quite sure what it is. Right here, it's a little bit more evident that they've patched it up, as well as this, where there was some wear and tear, I'm going to say, when you know what the pyramid was doing. But that was wear and tear. But anyway, this funnel existed, and then they covered it up, and then hence they've dyed it so you can't see it as well either. But that's a lot of evidence of some cover-up there. This right here is the same picture you just saw from looking down the hallway. This is the king's chamber in there, and this is the antechamber. This right here had, I'm not going to call it something cut out of it. That's there intentionally. That's to aid the funnel that would go in of the oxygen that would be coming down and into the king's chamber. Victor Schauberger could explain that a whole lot more, and I really wish the implosion research people would take this seriously if they ever see any of this, and could really help me. But hence, they've covered it over, made it look all nice and pretty. You know, king wouldn't want it to be broken like that. Let's go back into the Queen's Chamber here. The air shafts. Those air shafts never connected to the Queen's Chamber. In fact, this one, the only reason they really found it is because it had cracks in right there, and I'm going to tell you that's because all that static electricity, which was captured in the water, would then climb this ladder. The static electricity would climb the ladder until it got to a high enough potential where it would jump to this conduit. And you're going to have so much electricity jump into that conduit that over time it eventually cracked. And maybe there was a whole lot of it at once. You know, lightning bolts and stuff like that could have actually hit it. They hit the Lexor all the time, and I still think they hit the pyramid from time to time. But anyway, there's the crack that I'm talking about. Pictures worth 1,000 words. That's the crack that I was talking about. And that's the northern one that they cut through. Both of those they cut through and sent little robots up there, so we know they weren't air shafts. They get up to the top. They've got little blocks there. That is how they pulled the power off or out of the liquid. And let's stick to that story still. The shaft that went down to the grotto, the spillway. Now this, I can't really blame the people who came up from the grotto, and they had to break their way in. They were looking for robbery, you know, to rob stuff. They weren't looking to preserve this. So it's horrible what they did, because the exact size of the holes and the dimensions would really help to calculate the exact pressures. But there would have been a rock that covered this, making it look just like the other side. And except for there would have been a cut across the bottom here where the water would spill down. You'd have the a vent here for the air to come in from below there, and then you have a spillway of water. Either this right here is part of the spillway where it would come in over from the side, or it would go down into this, which would look just like any other of the what do you call them? Any other of these, the pools, the retaining pools for the water. However, it had a bottom in it that would allow the water to flow through there, and it would pool up and flow through. In fact, I would have to say it would have to have a way to actually pool so that it was identical to the one on the other side. But we'll get into the exact engineering of that at a little bit later time. But they've now covered it over. Aside from the fact you can see they've stained the walls, they've covered it over with a box, so you can't even see it. Out of sight, out of mind. Again, it would look almost identical. It should have looked identical optically to that side. Before that, they had it caged over. It would have been nice if anybody has pictures of what's underneath that cage. Somebody who is doing work on it, give me a real picture. Pictures are better than drawings because drawings can be deceptive in some cases. This right here would have been the assumed water level. You can see the water level right here. That wasn't a bunch of people's hand marks. And you probably also have evidence of that water level on the down shaft, because that would have been the height the water would have gotten to before it spilled over the spillway as it built up. And then the oxygen would be bubbling into over here and up and just filling into the system from the bottom. I'll tell you really quick. This is where I mentioned all this water running down. You're also going to have a lot of static electricity running through it over time, even more, maybe a lightning bolt or two. You're going to get some evaporation. All that evaporation is going to condensate on the walls. And when that evaporation condensates on the walls, it's going to drip straight down off of these corners. So you're going to get a nice rainfall up and down the sides of here. Now what that's going to do is that's going to help to corral the static electricity which is running down here. And I really think as this system gets really, really up into play, that probably also helps to damper the sound of lightning bolts. But, that's just my theory, and I'm still sticking with it. Sorry, hypothesis. It's not a theory yet. Anyway, that's what it looks like today. And you can still see the remnants of the watermark there and there. Another picture of it. Now, here you can see some of the wear. Again, I'm going to tell you that that's where the water, like in a Lord Kelvin generator, the water would be coming down a heavier flow down this side than this side because it's pooling behind it. And when it comes down around and it gets warped around that, it's like splitting the water coming out of your tap, and every now and then there's going to be a spark. Oh, look at that right there would be the spark. You can even practically see the water flow. But that is going to generate some little bit of expansion of the water into gases, and or just making it split into particles, and it's going to be coming out here, and that's where you got your little bit of wear and tear. It's just part of the system. We already talked about how that was a cover-up. This hole right here, which they don't tell you, and I do have pictures, just unfortunately not in this picture stream. But if you go to this person's website, as long as it's still up, it's hard to get in touch with them, so I don't know how long their website's going to be up, but try to get there before it goes down. There are pictures that they took inside that of the shaft that connects to the shaft that comes out of the north side of the King's Chamber. And they put a magnet mirror in there and proved that the connection was there by shining a light back and forth. So they are a conduit, and I'm understanding more and more about how they worked and why. But anyway, and the one that's in that hallway is right above the 1 cubit mark, where this one is right below the 1 cubit mark, or if you want to call it yard. They're about the same. A cubit is like, I don't know, it's slightly different than a yard, but because most people know what a yard is, or a meter, say a meter, okay? But anyway, one is right below it, one is right above it. This right here shows the evidence of exactly where the water level would have been with all the hydrogen and oxygen above it, and this would have been where it retained, tried to keep the pressure in the room. Telling you these edges right here, if we took them and followed them out and watched how they bounced off the walls, that would probably isolate exactly where the creation of the water is. This right here documents a deep shaft. Now again, just like the hole they cut when they dug in to follow that shaft into the wall that came off between the antechamber and the grand gallery, they were chasing a hole down here as well, and that would have been a ground that would have helped the water, coaxed it down the spillway. Let's putting eyes on it. That shaft would have been right down here and would have grounded to a lower plane so that the water that's dripping off the spillway is of a it knows it can go lower. It doesn't like hold a meniscus up here because it can't drip. It breaks that a little bit of that tension so that it can fall off the spillway, and then once it's off the spillway, then it's captured, and then it's captured in the downflow. Um, this right here, great pictures showing all the evidence of the the viscosity, where the water is turning into the gases. In this case, this would be oxygen bubbling off the top. I only say that because I know where it is. It's on the oxygen side of the system. So it's bubbling off oxygen. These are the rocks. Now, I've been calling them the catalyst, or the cathode and anode. This one being the anode, this one being the cathode. I think more and more that they're actually placeholders. They may not be a catalyst for the reaction, but they may have been put there by the creators, designers, engineers, to make it more evident and obvious for us. And in fact, the number of holes they have in there, if we went with, what's his name, Karl Monk's The Code, they probably tell us something. Probably the angles of cut here probably tell us something, because these people were leaving us messages. This was not done here to be like a, we're not going to tell you what it does, because when you look at it, it's pretty, I think it's pretty evident. Anyway, one thing that I have noticed here, the heavy water, when you get into, just think of it like water and vinegar, oil and vinegar, oil and water, whatever. The heavier water would pool here and would come around and would pool into this side where it would pick up its, or retain, or energize its negative energy before spilling down this little waterfall and then falling down that same waterfall to this plane. So you energize the water, holding it underneath the ground. When I say the ground, I mean that's the grotto. There we go. This right here, antenna. That's your picking up your negative. I'm going to say negative vibes, if that helps. This is the little pool right here, and then the spillway that drops it down, so that the heavy water is pooled and then dropped down the spillway. The rest of it is saturated with normal water, but I think it's the heavy water that they use whenever possible as a conduit, just to enhance the scenario. Now, one of the other things I've discovered is the grotto itself. Grotto itself, that picture was a little bit deceptive. I found some actual photos. Now, the function still remains the same. However, the water flow is slightly different than how I illustrated in some of my videos, and I'm going to have to rework that, because once you can see exactly where the entrances are and exactly where the air hole in and out, this right here, the air hole in and out, which on this picture is right here, is the air hole in and out, and on here it's right there. But again, the picture helps. Actually, no, this is deceptive. It's actually right here if I was going to go with this picture. But this room, as you can see, actually goes up higher than the entrance. So like I said, the picture, the drawing right there, while it's good, is a tiny bit deceptive. But again, I'm going to rework my illustrations. My whole goal is to get this down factually, honestly, and understand the exact ways the elements are working together, and not to fabricate things. This is the downspill, and I'm going to tell you that this is where all the oxygen was, the pretty high ratio of oxygen to water, because when you crack them, the oxygen gets more and more. And this is the water that would be running down, and again, Victor Schauelberger's crew could tell you why it left those watermarks. This would be the water running down and just dropping its sediment. And whatever it doesn't drop here, some of it got up to the top of the King's chamber when it went up with the hydrogen, and the rest of it turned into the black soot when it went up with the oxygen. Well, I'm running out of time here, so have a good day. I'm going to try to maintain GreatGizaPyramid.com. Have a nice day. Bye.